She stood frozen at our mother's funeral, her mouth slightly open, staring at the man beside me, the man she once betrayed me for. But Karma? Karma came dressed in a suit and tie. Please stay with me as I tell you my story, and please don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing with your loved one. My sister and I were close, closer than most. We grew up sharing secrets, bedrooms, and birthday wishes. I trusted her more than anyone. So when I met Daniel, a charismatic, successful businessman who made me feel like I was living in a fairy tale, I brought her into that dream too. She helped me pick out my engagement dress, laughed with me during cake tastings, and told everyone how happy she was for me. I believed her. I truly did. But I started noticing small things. The way she looked at him just a second too long. How she'd accidentally show up when he and I had plans. The flirty jokes that made me uncomfortable, but she always brushed them off as harmless fun. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, Daniel ended everything. Abruptly, coldly. No real explanation. He disappeared, and so did she. A few days later, I saw them on social media, in Paris, holding hands, smiling. My world shattered. I deleted everything, socials, contacts, even my dreams. I packed my bags and moved across the country without telling anyone. I needed to rebuild, alone. 6 years passed. I focused on healing, working, growing. I started my own business. I met someone, kind, brilliant, and far more genuine than Daniel ever was. We built a life together, quietly, strongly. Then Mom passed. I returned home for the funeral, not knowing what to expect. As I walked in, dressed in black, with my husband's hand gently holding mine, all eyes turned, but hers. They froze. She stared at him. Recognition hit her like a slap. The man standing beside me was someone she had once tried and failed to chase after years ago. He smiled at her politely, completely unaware of the storm behind her eyes. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need words. Her silence, her wide eyes, and the trembling in her fake smile told me everything. I had won without even trying. And karma? It came quietly, in a suit and tie. From the outside, my life looked perfect. I had a warm, supportive family, a beautiful home, a promising career, and the kind of love story people envy. When I met Daniel, it felt like fate. He was successful, charming, generous, everything I thought I wanted in a life partner. My parents adored him. My friends said we were the power couple. And my sister? She smiled, said she was happy for me, told me how lucky I was. At first, I believed her, but then the small things started to add up. I'd catch her staring at Daniel when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd laugh a little too hard at his jokes, compliment his cologne, even once said, "If you ever disappear, I'm calling dibs." I laughed it off. I didn't want to be paranoid, didn't want to be that girl who accuses her sister of something so disgusting. She was my family, my blood. And Daniel, he loved me. Or so I thought. The engagement party was the moment things truly shifted. She wore a dress too tight, too short, something that made even my mother raise an eyebrow. She clung to Daniel all night, offering to refill his drink, whispering things in his ear. I smiled through it all, pretending not to notice, pretending I was imagining it. But then I overheard something I wasn't supposed to. I'd stepped outside for air, and on the patio, I heard her voice. Low, flirty, too familiar. "You don't really want her. You just feel obligated." I didn't catch his reply. I didn't want to. My heart was already cracking. Still, I hoped I was wrong. Maybe it was just a joke. Maybe I was overthinking. So I stayed silent. 1 week before the wedding, Daniel called it off. No real explanation. Just cold detachment. "It's not working," he said. "It's better this way." 3 days later, someone sent me a photo. It was them, Daniel and my sister, on a yacht in Santorini, kissing. That photo was the final blow. I vanished, deleted my social media, changed my number, quit my job, packed my things, and left the state without telling a soul. No dramatic goodbye, no final words, just silence. They could have each other. They deserved each other. And me? I had nothing, but also a chance to start again. And I would, quietly, on my terms, because sometimes losing everything is the first step to becoming unstoppable. After the betrayal, I disappeared. I cut off all contact, not just with my sister and ex-fiancé, but with everyone. I needed silence, space, and distance. I packed my car with what little made sense to keep, drove across 3 states, and settled in a sleepy little town where no one knew my name or my story. I changed jobs, trading corporate meetings and fake smiles for a modest role at a small design firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me time and peace. For the first time in years, I could breathe, but breathing wasn't healing. So I started therapy. I journaled, sometimes for hours, pouring out the pain, the confusion, the humiliation. I took long walks, then longer runs. The gym became a place where I worked out the grief 1 mile, 1 rep, 1 tear at a time. The transformation wasn't overnight. It was slow, messy, and at times unbearable. But I kept showing up for myself. With every week, I felt stronger. One quiet afternoon, on a whim, I registered a business name, Resilient Interiors. I had no plan, no funding, just the stubborn desire to create something of my own. I started small, designing cozy spaces for neighbors, staging homes, offering virtual consults. Word spread. Clients came. The business grew. And somewhere along that journey, he appeared. We met at a networking event I almost skipped. He wasn't flashy or arrogant. He was calm, self-assured, and had that kind of quiet confidence that didn't need to prove itself. We talked about books, travel, and purpose. Not once about money or status. It felt safe. I didn't tell him about my past. Not yet. I wanted him to know me, not the shattered version my sister and ex helped create. He respected that. Over time, his kindness, consistency, and honesty began melting the walls I had built. Where Daniel had used charm as a weapon, this man used presence as protection. And one crisp winter morning, after a hike and a thermos of hot coffee, he pulled out a ring. I didn't hesitate. I said yes, not for revenge, not to prove anything, but because, for the first time in years, I felt whole. What I didn't know then was how poetic it would all become. How fate would give me a front row seat to justice, served not with spite, but with success. That moment was coming, and when it did, I wouldn't have to say a word. My life would speak for itself. Back in my hometown, my sister's picture-perfect life was starting to crack. To the outside world, she still clung to the image. Designer clothes, curated selfies, captions about love and success. But beneath it, things were falling apart. The man she stole from me, the one she thought would make her life a dream, had grown distant, cold. He stayed out late, whispered on phone calls, and spent more nights in hotels than at home. She tried to hold it together, of course, pushed the fairy tale harder on social media, but people noticed. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes anymore. The sparkle faded. Friends she once bragged to quietly drifted away. And then came the financial stress. His business deals soured. Their savings dwindled. The vacations stopped. The luxury started to feel like a costume she could no longer afford. Bitterness crept in, not just toward him, but toward everyone. She snapped at family dinners, rolled her eyes during conversations, criticized people who were just trying to help. But oddly, she wasn't jealous of anyone in particular anymore. It was like the envy turned inward. She'd won, but somehow still lost. At family events, I heard she'd ask about me, casually at first. Anyone heard from her, then with more curiosity. No one had answers. I had disappeared so completely that even my parents had stopped trying to explain where I went. She started looking me up, old Instagram handles, LinkedIn, even Reddit forum. She'd scroll for hours, trying to figure out where I went, what I was doing. She never said it outright, but I'm told the regret started showing in small ways. A long pause before toasting at a family dinner. A story about me that she told a little too fondly. A sigh when someone brought up the wedding that never happened. But even then, she kept justifying what she did. It wasn't real love, she'd say. They weren't meant to be. She told herself that if she hadn't done it, someone else would have. She clung to that excuse like a lifeline, even as it frayed in her hands. And then came the funeral. She didn't expect to see me there. She didn't expect the black luxury car, or the man who stepped out with me, his hand in mine, his presence calm, commanding, familiar. That was the moment her justifications shattered, and she knew karma had finally come, quiet, dressed in elegance, and holding my hand. When Mom passed, the news hit me harder than I expected. Grief has a strange way of finding the softest part of you, no matter how far you've come. Despite everything, I knew I had to go back. Not just for her, but for me. It had been 6 years since I last stepped foot in that town. 6 years since I vanished. I walked into the church hand in hand with my husband, dressed in black, simple, elegant, understated but unmistakably powerful. His presence beside me turned heads. Conversations paused. People stared. And then I saw her. She froze. Her mouth parted just slightly, her eyes scanning him in disbelief. He was different now. Sharper suit, stronger posture, the quiet confidence of a man who'd built something real. But she recognized. Oh, she knew exactly who he was. I saw it in her face. The flicker of memory. Years ago, before Daniel, she tried to flirt with him at a business event. He brushed her off politely, uninterested in the game she played. She never forgave him for that. And now, here he was, not just present, but mine. She tried to smile, tried to feign warmth as we approached. "I didn't know you were coming," she said, her voice just slightly unsteady. I nodded, polite. "Of course. It's Mom." My husband shook her hand, with practiced calm. If he remembered her from years ago, and I suspect he didn't show it. That was the thing about him. He didn't need to prove anything. His success didn't scream. It spoke in silence, in the way people moved out of his way without even realizing it. Throughout the service, I felt her eyes on me, measuring, comparing. I didn't flinch. I didn't have to. I had already won. My family was stunned, not just by who I was with, but by who I'd become. No longer the broken, betrayed girl who disappeared. I was poised, secure, radiant, not in spite of the pain, but because of the way I rose from it. She kept looking for cracks, I could tell, waiting for me to lash out, to stumble, to give her something to feel superior about. But I gave her nothing, because I didn't come back for revenge. I came back to bury my mother. But what I left behind was something else entirely. She thought she'd stolen everything from me. What she saw that day was the truth. I never needed to get even. I just needed to become unreachable. And the best part? I was just getting started. I never planned revenge. Honestly, after everything I'd been through, all I wanted was peace, a quiet life, a second chance at happiness, and to never look back. But life has a funny way of turning healing into poetic justice, without you even lifting a finger. My husband wasn't just kind and loyal. He was incredibly successful in ways that didn't scream for attention. He built his empire quietly, ethically, and when people finally realized who he was, it was always met with admiration, not intimidation. He wasn't Daniel, and thank God for that. After Mum's funeral, I started reconnecting with a few extended family members, cousins who used to be close, but lost touch after I left, old family friends who remembered me fondly. Word got around quickly, not just about my return, but about my business. Resilient Interiors had grown far beyond what I imagined. Magazine features, design awards, speaking invitations. My name was showing up in places I never dreamed of. That's when things started unraveling for my sister. Every interaction made her more erratic. She tried to hide it under tight smiles and forced hugs, but she couldn't contain the bitterness leaking through. She'd interrupt me mid-sentence, throw little jabs dressed as jokes, constantly bring up the past as if trying to remind everyone of who I used to be. But no one was listening to her anymore. One day, an aunt mentioned that my sister had lied to the family years ago, said I ran off in disgrace, that I'd been unstable, even hinted I was in trouble with the law. None of it was true, and now everyone knew. The lies she once used to elevate herself were coming back to bury her. Slowly, the invites stopped. Friends distanced themselves. Even her social media following, once her prized possession, dwindled as the truth surfaced. Daniel reached out once, a long email about regret, poor choices, and wondering if I'd talk. I didn't reply. I never even finished reading it. I didn't have to say anything. My life had already spoken for me. I lived quietly. I rose with grace. I never gloated, never confronted, never rubbed anything in her face. But somehow, that made it all the more painful for her. Because Karma, she doesn't always shout. Sometimes she walks in silently, dressed in peace, wrapped in success, holding the hand of a good man. And I let her do all the heavy lifting. I didn't come to the funeral for closure. I came to say goodbye to my mother. But in the stillness of that day, something else happened. Something I hadn't planned. Something louder than any confrontation. Silence. I didn't lash out. I didn't exchange harsh words or rehash the past. When I walked into the church, hand in hand with my husband, I simply smiled. A small, calm smile that said everything I didn't need to voice. My sister saw it, and she hated it. She tried to mask her reaction, but her eyes betrayed her. She was used to power through manipulation, through drama. But this new version of me, steady, poised, untouchable, left her unsure of her footing. The woman she once broke was gone, replaced by someone she couldn't shake, family members whispered. I heard it in the corners of the room. She's doing better than ever. That's her husband. She looks incredible. My sister heard it too. I watched the flicker of discomfort flash across her face. She tried to stir the pot, of course, passive-aggressive comments here and there, disguised as jokes, aimed like daggers, but no one bit, not even me, especially not my husband, who with a calm glance or a simple word shut down every attempt without ever raising his voice. She was unraveling by the hour. I could see it, the way she kept adjusting her hair, over-explaining herself, trying to reclaim the spotlight she used to own. But it was gone. People weren't falling for her charm anymore. They'd seen through it, and worse, they'd seen the alternative, me. As we prepared to leave, she finally cornered me, almost desperate for some kind of confrontation, some validation for her bitterness. I didn't give her either. I just looked at her and said softly, "You can keep the memories. I made new ones." That was it. Her face fell. For the first time, there was no comeback, no smirk, no act, just silence. She stood there as I walked away, the weight of her choices finally settling in. The fiancé she stole had become a stranger. Her status meant nothing, and me, the sister she thought she crushed, had risen quietly, gracefully, without needing to destroy her in return. I got into the car, my husband's hand gently resting on mine, and as we drove away, I realized something. I wasn't running anymore. I was finally free. 6 years ago, I disappeared from the life I once knew, not out of weakness, but survival. After my sister betrayed me and ran off with my fiancé, I knew staying would only break me further, so I left, quietly. No grand exit, no long goodbye, just a decision to start over. The first year was the hardest. I was numb, unsure, barely holding it together. I poured my pain into therapy sessions and journal entries. Slowly, I began working out, not just for my body, but for my mind. I stopped asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "What's next?" I moved to a city where no one knew my story. I took a small admin job at a design firm, and after hours, I sketched ideas and learned everything I could about interior spaces. Within 2 years, I launched my own small studio from my apartment. It started with friends of friends, then word spread. By year 4, my business had a name, a team, and a wait list. But more than the work, what changed me were the people I met. I formed friendships with women who knew pain, who knew growth. We celebrated each other's wins, cried through the hard parts, and reminded one another of our worth. They didn't see me as broken. They saw me as becoming. I met my husband at a leadership retreat in Aspen. He wasn't flashy. He listened more than he talked, and when he smiled, it felt safe. Our connection was slow and steady, nothing like the roller coaster that had defined my past. With him, love didn't hurt. It healed. When news of my mother's passing came, I hesitated. Returning felt like reopening a wound, but I knew deep down I wasn't that woman anymore. I didn't return to prove anything. I returned because I had become something. Walking into that funeral hand in hand with him, I didn't have to say a word. My sister's reaction told me everything I needed to know. She saw the woman she tried to destroy, standing taller, glowing brighter, and loved in a way she'd never been. She looked at me like a ghost, but I wasn't haunting her. I was reminding her. I survived. I rebuilt. And I won. Not out of revenge, but through growth. I didn't need her apology. I didn't even need closure. Just one final glance back at the past, before I turned the page for good. After the funeral, once the condolences faded and the crowd dispersed, I stayed behind to help sort through Mum's belongings. It was quiet in her house, eerily so. Everything smelled like her perfume. I opened her old cedar chest, searching for photos, and instead found a small envelope with my name on it. It was her handwriting. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter, already bracing myself for emotions I'd spent years suppressing. It was dated nearly 5 years ago. She knew. In the letter, she wrote that she had seen the cracks forming before I did. She noticed the jealousy in my sister's smile, the way Daniel's eyes lingered in ways they shouldn't. But she said she hoped it would pass, that maybe somehow love and family would keep us whole. She admitted that staying silent was her biggest regret. "I should have protected you. I should have said something," she wrote. "But I wanted to keep our family together, even if it meant watching you fall apart." I broke down. There I was, years later, standing in the very place where my life had once felt safe, now reading the truth I always suspected, but never confirmed. She knew I wasn't crazy. She knew the pain I carried. She just didn't know how to fix it. The letter ended with a single line: "Live your truth, not their lies." That sentence wrapped around my heart like a balm. She was gone, but in that moment it felt like she had come back just long enough to tell me she saw me, that she understood why I left, that my silence, my distance, my healing, none of it was abandonment. It was survival. I folded the letter and tucked it back into the envelope. I didn't tell anyone about it. Not my husband, not my sister, not even my closest friends. That letter wasn't meant to be shared. It was a final, private gift between mother and daughter. No revenge, no confrontation, no dramatic ending, just peace. That letter didn't just close a chapter, it sealed it with love. And as I left her house for the last time, I didn't feel heavy. I felt free. Betrayal changes you, not just because of the pain it caused, but because of what it forces you to face within yourself. I wasn't just betrayed by my sister. I was betrayed by the man I once believed would spend his life beside me. That double wound cut deep. But if you're watching this and carrying your own version of that pain, I want you to hear this. You don't have to get even. You just have to move on. Here are 3 things I've learned. First, your worth isn't tied to who hurt you. Their actions say everything about them, not you. You're not broken. You're becoming. Second, healing is quiet. It happens in early mornings, hard conversations with yourself, and the decision to rise again even when no one's watching. Don't underestimate the power of rebuilding in silence. And third, peace is more powerful than revenge. I didn't need to destroy them to win. I just needed to rediscover myself, build my life with intention, and love someone who truly valued me. Today, I am not that shattered woman. I am stronger, I am whole, and I am free. So if you're hurting right now, hold on. Start with small steps. Choose growth, choose peace. And when you're ready, let go. Because sometimes, the best revenge is no revenge at all. As for me, I'm walking into the next chapter, hand in hand with the love I never expected, stronger than I've ever been. Do you think I did the right thing by choosing peace over revenge? Or would you have confronted them and demanded justice? I'd love to know what you would have done in my place. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if stories of healing, strength, and quiet comebacks inspire you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment.